Hi, minasan, konnichiwa, Edo desu. Welcome to the final episode of the JLfest 2021 Thursday talk show. Tonight, I have a very special guest, a French actor living in Japan who also a host on a regular TV show and writes lyrics and scenarios. But before that, let's take a look at this video clipping.
Bonjour, konnichiwa, hello everyone, my name is Vincent. It's Vincent in English, but I was born in the southwest of France, so it's pronounced Vincent in French, so please call me Vincent today. I'm very happy to participate to the Japanese Language Festival 2021. Today, yoroshiku onegaishimasu. So, let me briefly introduce myself. I came to Japan when I was 20, so 21 years ago, and I studied Japanese before that back to France in the university in Bordeaux. So, what am I doing in Japan? In fact, I have a very special work, I would say, because I work for TV, movies. Until now, I did take part in many TV dramas and movies like Nodame Kantabire or Uchu Kyodai. And last but not least, I was really honored to play Mr. Mike Miller, that I guess you all know, for the most recent DVD of Minna no Nihongo. And also, since last year, I started a YouTube channel where I'm talking about my life in Japan. So please don't forget to subscribe, and the link will be in the description. Today, I will try to talk to you about everything about what I did in Japan. If you have any questions, really, don't hesitate to ask me anything. Let's start. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
Well, let's welcome online Vincent. Hi, Vincent.
Konbanwa, bonsoir, hello everyone.
So glad
I know
you
my
could join
name
us.
is a bit difficult to pronounce in French, so you can call me whatever. Vincent or Vincent is fine because we are talking in English today. So
Well, I'll try to pronounce it correctly. Vincent, right?
Vincent.
Vincent. Okay, sorry. Pardon my pronunciation.
That's fine, don't worry.
Now, Vincent, you have acted in several TV dramas and films,
Yeah.
appear on Japanese commercial, and currently
Yeah.
hosting the regular Okinawa Wonder Walker TV program.
Yep.
You write songs, lyrics, and drama scenarios in Japanese.
Yes.
I also noticed that you even speak Japanese to your pet at home.
Yeah, I do. It's kind of a mix between Japanese and French when I talk to my cat that is kind of sleeping now, just next to me. So he's silent, but I can't promise he will be silent for the whole interview. So let's
Don't
just pray
worry,
for that.
we also welcome him on the show. Now, Monzo, your life seems to revolve around Japanese language, especially on speaking and writing Japanese. So perhaps let me start with my first question: is that how do you train your spoken Japanese?
Okay, so at first I was studying Japanese at university in France, in Bordeaux. And I was kind of, until high school, more of a science guy, let's say. So everyone was convinced, my parents, the teachers, everyone was thinking, I will go to some medicine university or something like that, or engineering or something. But I kind of betrayed anyone because I really wanted to study Japanese. So I did go to the university to study that. And it was first I studied like that at university. I did study a little bit by myself before that because I was already a big fan of manga and Japanese animation and stuff like that. So, and that was really funny because at that point I didn't know that there are several ways of speaking in the Japanese language, like politeness, of course, but also men and women don't use the same words. So I was just kind of imitating what I was listening in anime. That was really not a real way of speaking Japanese because sometimes it was very it was very feminine or stuff like that. But then after that at university, I kind of could perfect that and know the differences and stuff like that. And also, I had a really good teacher at university, Hidehara Sensei, that was really good. And she didn't speak French at all. the lessons, even for us beginners, everything was in Japanese. So she was doing gestures, stuff like that to make us understand. But already that kind of did put us in the way of trying to understand the way Japanese expression was working. And then also there were a lot of like exchange students, Japanese exchange students at my university. So I tried to make friends with some of them and to speak Japanese as much as I could, like even outside of the lessons. So yeah, that was a way for me to train to try to I wouldn't say master, but to learn Japanese as natural as possible first when I was at university. But of course, after arriving in Japan, it was like not enough. Like it was already enough to communicate, but not enough to be considered as a native speaker or something. So there was a lot of work done also after I arrived here. I would say, yeah.
How long does it take when you arrive in Japan for you to get used of speaking to Japanese or listening to them in the normal
Let's say at first, after I would say 3 years at university, when I came the first time, it was kind of already enough to communicate and to without any problem. And sometimes, of course, there were some stuff that I couldn't understand, but like then when I was asking and people were explaining me with other words, I could basically understand that I could basically live in Japan without any much difficulties, I would say. But I would say from that point until the point, from that point to the point, I kind of considered like I maybe was fluent in Japanese. I would say maybe 5 years for me from that after arriving here. And what was funny is that like the most obvious way for me to notice it was when Japanese people stopped telling me that my Japanese was good. When people stopped telling me, "Nihongo jouzu desu ne," was kind of like, the switch. I felt people were not considering anymore that they were talking to a foreigner, speaking kind of like not so bad Japanese, but they start to forget that they were talking to a foreigner, and like they started to feel that they were talking to maybe someone speaking like as they are speaking themselves.
I see. I see. So meaning that to speak to Japanese native speakers, even in your country, to prepare yourself to speak better. I mean, to speak near native Japanese.
Yeah, already in France, I kind of like made a lot of Japanese friends to try to practice, but of course they were also in France to study French, so it could have been a little bit too much selfish if I was speaking only Japanese to them. So it was kind of an exchange, let's say. But also, after I arrived in Japan, when I was at university in Japan, there were other exchange students like me from like England, from Germany, many from Korea, China, but also many from Europe. And in my class, there were mainly like people from Germany and England. And maybe they thought I was not really nice with them because I wasn't talking that much with them, to be honest. Just because, like, of course, I was like saying hello, talking, having a little chat here and there. But mostly I really felt I was in Japan to study Japanese, to, meet Japanese people, to talk Japanese with Japanese people and that if I wanted to talk like English with British people or German with German people, I could go to Germany or England. Of course, like, of course, I was friend with them, but I didn't try to get too much involved in the, let's say, other foreigners community there at university, because I wanted to spend as much time as I could, like with Japanese people, talking Japanese, observing how they live, what is life in Japan and stuff like that. And basically that's something that I kind of kept after that, because I I never really mingled with the French embassy or the French community or stuff like that in Japan. So, and that's probably one big thing also that helped me to
Nice.
get used to speak
To speak
kind of a
Japanese.
native Japanese,
Mm,
but
mm,
also to get
mm, mm,
integrated quite
mm,
fast, I would say.
But when you speak to the Japanese, do you mimic how the way that they speak, or you still retain your own personality or your own accent, for example?
Um, I think there is part of mimic, of course, especially at first. I would say,
Mm,
like
mm,
until I could myself really analyze the sentences and the words and the language, until the point I was like fluent and confident enough
mm, mm, mm.
to to challenge a little bit the language in the way I was expressing. At first, there was a lot of like mimic, of course. Um, yeah. Also, another thing that helped a lot, I would say, like 2 years after I arrived in Japan, I started to have a regular show for the radio,
Mm, mm,
and it
mm,
was a live show. There was the main presenter, and I was kind of a reporter in that
mm,
show
mm, mm, mm,
once a week,
mm.
and it was live. And
Ah,
it was only 1 or 2 years after I arrived in Japan, and the script was kind of real difficult, and so it was really hard.
uh, uh,
But I think it was really a good like way to get better, even if it was really really hard on like an academic point, and
mm,
on the
mm,
use of the language, but
mm,
also
mm.
psychologically, because like every week I was getting back to the studio after the report, and the producer was just
Oh,
shouting, "We
mm,
didn't get anything you were saying because your accent is not good, and like it's the intonation is not said like that, and blah blah blah." And so I was kind of crying a lot, I guess, for the 3 years, because I kind of did it for 3 years. But now, like looking back at it, even if it
mm,
was really hard, I
mm,
think it
mm.
was very good way, because um after that I did a lot of work for TV and stuff like that
Yeah,
also.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yet, radio,
Mm,
contrarily to TV and other stuff, you only have the voice.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you don't
yeah.
have the gesture, you don't have the
Mm,
expression
mm,
to to
mm,
um
mm,
to
mm, mm,
image what
mm,
you're saying.
mm,
And
mm, mm,
so it
mm.
has to be kind of perfect for people to understand what you're saying.
But
It
when you
has
say perfect, what do you mean by perfect? Perfect to the Japanese or perfect to you or to
perfect
the
to the
audience?
Japanese, to the intonation, to stuff like that.
Ah,
Because
okay.
sometimes when the intonation is not like the way it has to be, people
Uh,
would not understand what you're saying.
mm,
And
mm, mm, mm,
that's
mm,
something I think you can cover when
mm.
when you have also your face, your facial expressions, the
I
gesture
see.
and stuff like
Okay.
that. But when it's only the voice, and when it's a
Mm,
live
mm,
show that
mm,
you
mm.
can't do any retake or stuffs like that, so it was very hard, but it was a challenge for me, because I really wanted to do well in the
Mm,
job.
mm,
So
mm,
it's kind of my perfectionist like part that was, no,
mm,
I'm not good at it yet, but I want to become good at it, and I want people to think that they really understand and what I'm saying and stuff like that. So I was lucky, let's say, to have that work
mm,
that was
mm,
very hard,
mm,
but that
mm,
was
mm,
very a good like
mm,
a good formation for me to try to get as um, native as possible
mm,
when
mm,
talking,
mm, mm. Okay,
because I
great.
had to do
Mm,
that for the
mm, mm.
radio, and that was kind of like maybe destiny that put me on that path to have that job and like perfectionate my
Okay, let's
Japanese.
talk about your writing.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. What sort of genre do you prefer to write, and in what style?
Um, I would say it's kind of abstract, but
Ah.
like it really depends. I really like to write stories.
Mm,
That would be more like a hobby, not really like professionally yet.
mm,
It's really when I feel that I really have that story popping up in my head, and I have to put that on paper, and yeah, and that would be some like more psychological stuff. So I really, really, really love like horror movies. So sometimes I'd really like to write like some scary stuffs. More somewhere in
Hey.
between, in between the psychological aspect and the more scary aspect. But for the lyrics that I did more professionally for some
Oh.
um, for some TV shows for NHK, for example, for some like commercial songs
Mm,
or
mm,
for some artists,
mm.
it's something more poetic and more abstract, I would say.
Okay. All right.
So when I do write, of course, for work, there is kind of a request, to the theme I should write about. So I kind of like stick to that, and of course, if it's for a TV show or for a TV commercial, it tends to be some more happy, happy like
Right.
stuffs.
Right.
But the stuffs I write for I it's not for myself, but like I don't write for work, tend to be a little more
Mm, mm,
dark.
mm. But how do you hone your writing skills in Japanese? How do you train?
um I didn't feel really it had ever been training, let's say.
Mm, mm.
I really loved when I was in France, to write lyrics already
Okay.
in French, of course, at the time. But
Mm,
then, kind of naturally,
mm,
after a few
mm,
years in Japan, I felt,
mm,
I want to write something. I want to write something. So I
mm,
started, and like, as I was kind of using Japanese every day in my everyday
mm,
life,
mm,
I
mm.
thought, oh, let's try to write that in Japanese. And
Ah,
like, I was so freaking proud of what I wrote at that time. But then, when I was like rereading it 1 year later or 2 years later, or the more time was like in between the time I wrote it and the time I reread it, the more I was like, oh my God, what is that like mess of grammar, and what is that mess of like so poor vocabulary, and so, because I of course continued to progress in
mm,
Japanese after
mm,
that.
mm, 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 mm,
So,
mm,
but
mm.
I still think the important thing in that is like even if it's really bad, because like after a few years when I reread it, it was, for some of that it was really bad, like the the vocabulary was so poor and the grammar was so nonsense and stuff like that. Uh, Even though I think the challenge was
Mm, mm,
interesting, like to
mm,
try,
mm, mm.
to
Right.
write
Okay.
it in
Yeah.
Japanese. And then
Mm,
you
mm,
still have plenty of time and plenty of rooms to correct it after that when you progress in
mm,
Japanese.
mm,
And
mm,
then after that, even nowadays,
mm.
I do write stuffs that are grammatical nonsense. But the difference is that now I
Yeah.
do it on purpose, let's say. It's like
Ah,
an
okay.
artistic meaning.
Mm, 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 mm,
At
mm,
that
mm,
time,
mm,
I was not
mm,
really
mm.
aware that it was the grammatical nonsense. But even though now, for
Yeah.
some, it's really a mess. For some,
Mm,
it's like if I reread it now, for some,
yeah.
it has still some like really freshness in
Ah,
it, and some
okay.
like
All right.
interesting,
Okay.
um,
Mm.
very very pure, I
Mm,
would say
mm,
pure way of
mm,
expressing that I
mm.
maybe wouldn't have now because I know Japanese language too much now. But at that time, it was kind of like a newborn, I would say.
Mm, mm,
So
mm,
it was
mm,
very
mm,
fresh,
mm.
very pure, and
Very
so,
true.
and
Right.
it also has its charm to,
I
yeah.
see, I see. Right, right. Okay. I do understand because as you write, you improve as you not just only improve, but also you have your life experience gain on it, and then you can work really hard
Yeah, and
on your
on
writing
the
better.
language part, at first I was very bad at kanjis. I
Ah,
was very, very bad at kanjis, and like I kind of, when I was at university, I kind of skipped all the efforts
oh,
for the kanji. I kind of
mm,
focused on other parts of the Japanese language,
mm,
and I felt I could like perfectionate the kanji learning once in Japan.
okay,
And
okay.
so after coming to Japan, I did like work a lot my kanji, and like of course in some academic ways, but
Mm,
also
mm,
in
mm.
some funny ways. I do really like Japanese songs, J-pop,
Ah,
and
okay.
like I was a little bit less now, but after I arrived, I was listening to a lot of Japanese songs of J-pop. So that influenced me a little bit for the writings, of course. But the other thing is that like when you go to karaoke, and I really love karaoke. After listening a song for I don't know how many hundreds of times, you kind of input the lyrics in your mind, even if you have no clue of what they are at all and how it's written and so. But once you go to karaoke, then you realize, oh, so that was what they were saying. Or, oh, okay, that's how it's written. That's the kanji used for that words and stuff like that. So the karaoke helped me a lot for the kanji.
Okay.
And also shoujo manga, the manga for girls, let's say.
Why shoujo manga?
Shoujo manga? Because the shoujo manga has way more ruby, way more yomigana on the kanji than the shonen manga. So when you're studying, the shoujo manga is way better because you can learn the kanji at the same time because all the readings are written. What is not as often, I would say. It's not as often for the shonen manga.
I see, but the content may not be so to your liking.
Okay, there is someone in the comments saying Vincent, long time no see, but it's just a number, so I have no idea who it is. But long time no see.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's move to the next question that I would like to ask you about your interacting with the Japanese.
Yeah.
Okay, you have lived in Japan for 21 years. All right?
Yes.
Okay, and we understand Japan is a high context society, steeped with tradition and culture, and many are left unsaid, and then one need to maneuver over some glass walls, and that's why many foreigners always complain that it's difficult to be accepted by the Japanese society. So perhaps tell us, how did you manage to get accepted, first as a fellow actor, by the industry and the Japanese audience, all right, and secondly as a resident in the community?
Yeah, Japan, is very culture that is loving its traditions and so on. But not only, it's also very, and everyone know that it's also very like on front of everything about technology, about like about also many aspects. So I think Japan is very like a country like in a good meaning, with a very good duality, with like the traditional aspect, the old aspect, and the very new aspect. So when you say like culture, traditions, and stuff like that, it makes you feel or think that people are very closed to whatever else is outside of that. But that's not the case really in Japan, because they are kind of really open to everything what is new and so on. So they're very welcoming, and they're famous for being welcoming for other people, other cultures, for tourists and stuff like that. But also it's very important to not get too critical about like that culture and stuff like that. Even if you don't understand some aspects of it, and even if some aspects can seem really strange for your own culture and for what you've been taught all your life in your own culture and your own country. So especially in France, we kind of like feel that it's like we are the country who kind of created human rights and stuff like that, and then everything we've been told are like what the world should be. And I think in United States it's kind of similar also for other reasons, but it's kind of like in Japan, for French or maybe for Americans, it's like it's a good pride of our countries. But in Japan, it can be felt more as goman. Goman is like to try to be strongly invasive on other people's beliefs and to try to push your own thoughts on everyone. So I think what is very difficult in Japan at first, but what is very important to integrate the society is to try not to judge what you cannot understand yet. It's very important to not judging what you don't understand yet, because there are many aspects in the culture that does take many years to understand, and that can be sometimes shocking at first because you don't know it, you don't understand it, and why people wouldn't tell you the truth sometimes. For example, in the Western culture, it's called hypocrisy. In Japan, it's called politeness, because you don't want to hurt people. But in France, we would get mad and say, "Oh, you're so hypocritical. Why didn't you tell me that my hair was not looking good," or stuff like that. But in Japan, no one would say ever that, and because they don't want to hurt you. So even sometimes people think it's better to lie to make feel that person comfortable. And sometimes it's just an example between so many others. But sometimes when you don't get it, you could feel, "Oh, I thought we were friends. Why didn't you tell me the truth?" But in Japan, it's not the way it works. So you don't have to get mad and just don't judge, because for Japanese people, it's something that can be normal. And that can be, and that is more than normal. That is what it has to be polite. So I think the most important thing is just to put aside sometimes all the things you've been taught in your culture and in your country, and for the first year to stay not neutral, to kind of analyze how it works in Japan. And so for me, it was difficult because French people are very talkative and very and we love to talk, to tell the world what we think about anything, about everything. So it's kind of a big work on oneself to try not to be too invasive on the behaviors in other people's country. But first, take just one step behind. It's very important, I think, to observe. And after observing, even if some things shock you, before reacting, just try to understand why it's like that in Japan. And then after a few years, and when you understood that, you have all the time and all the rooms to talk about it with Japanese people. But at first, when you don't when you're not comfortable enough in the language, if you try to ask something that maybe shocks you in Japan, maybe Japanese people can feel it as a critic. So I think first it's just better maybe to keep a low profile.
But how will you try to understand them if you don't ask in the beginning? You mean you just and then you just let it go?
You can ask, just don't react too strongly.
Okay.
But of course it's nice to ask, but it's very important before that to observe.
All right. Okay.
And when you ask something that may or may not, but even if there is a slightest possibility that it may offend someone in Japan, really it's very important to choose the person to ask it, and to choose someone that you can really trust, let's say, and that will understand that it's not an attack, and that it's not a way to dismiss or to criticize Japanese culture, Japanese society.
All right.
Because of course, when you arrive in a country, there is a lot of curiosity. You want to know everything, And and Japanese people also are very curious. They ask a lot of people to foreigners, and sometimes also Japanese people are not really how to say that they're a little bit not that good at asking people. Sometimes for foreigners also it can be felt as offending some questions,
All right.
like
Okay.
and some people feels it's kind of racism, but I don't think it is. It's just like a lot of curiosity and they don't know the way to ask it properly. And but still Westerners, especially, and foreigners tend to be more frank in the way of asking questions, and so sometimes it can be offending too. So I think it's really important to observe first and to try to understand why some aspects of the society are sometimes different of what we are used about, and so for that, like, yeah, it's very important to observe and to spend a lot of time with Japanese people. Also, as I said like a few minutes ago, it's very important to learn the language, but also to understand the culture, to spend a lot of time with locals. It's really a great way to know how they behave, to
All
understand,
right.
to watch
Okay.
them and so on. And that's what I tried to do also in my work, because at first I was like working with agencies like for foreigners in Japan, for that were very specialized on like foreign talents, foreign actors. But most of the time it was just like extras jobs, like
Okay.
walking behind the main actor or just being seated like behind the main presenter or stuff like that. So it was, professionally speaking, it was not really like a good motivation, because it was like just being a plant, basically, sitting like in the corner of a room and like smiling at the camera or just stuff like that. So like just being like a plant there, but
Like a plant.
like a plant, yeah. But also like culturally speaking, all the time be surrounded by other foreigners like working with me, and so it was not really helping me to get like more deeper in the Japanese society. So kind of quickly after a year, or not even a year, a few months, I would say, like
Okay.
maybe 8 months, working in those agencies for foreigners, I tried to search for an acting agency, not for foreigners, but like with Japanese actors, and so
All
who
right.
would that would agree, which would agree
Okay.
to contract
Mm,
foreign actor,
mm,
because I was
mm,
already
mm,
acting in France for theater and
mm,
stuff like that.
mm,
So I did a lot of research,
mm,
and
mm,
I did like talk to a lot of people and meet a lot of agencies and stuffs. And at first it didn't work, but
mm,
after a few try after a
mm,
few try, I did like find an agency
mm, mm,
that was interested, and that like I did have a contract with, and I still working with them nowadays, even if I'm half freelance also, but I'm still working with them nowadays. And yeah, that was the first big step, because I was like not a foreigner, a random foreigner in a foreigner agency. I was like one of the actors of a Japanese actor agency that, by the way, was like optionally foreigner. So that was kind of really, really like a big
But
step
how,
for me.
how did you convince that agency to take you on?
Um, like they were interested at first, like they wanted to have a
All
try
right.
with a
Okay.
foreigner, because one of their actress
Mm,
was
mm,
working in many foreign movies. So they
mm.
wanted maybe a foreigner that could be acting jobs and also maybe helping for that
I
actress when
see.
she
All right.
goes abroad, and
Okay.
so
All right.
so that was like a good mix of that. So the timing was good.
Good. Yeah. All right. All right.
um the boss of the agency was really open-minded, so he was not
Mm.
against the idea
Okay.
of having a
I see.
foreigner because all the other agencies like before that told me like, well, there are plenty of agencies for foreigners, so you should like stay with them.
I
But
see.
that was not at that time, especially that was not really
So,
really good work.
so the timing is very important, I guess,
So
right?
the timing was really important. Like still also while being in the foreigners agencies, I
Mm,
yet tried to choose like works that could be like good for like the career.
mm,
So I
mm, 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 mm,
try
mm,
not to do anything but like to focus my time on jobs that may
mm,
have like one or two lines. It was very small parts, but
mm.
even though something that could like be written in like you know
Yeah, that's great.
an appearance list, the
Mm,
work list
mm,
to
mm,
what I did before that.
mm,
So
mm,
I
mm.
did already have like a small resume
All right.
for
Okay.
like
Okay. Mm, mm,
to
mm, mm,
apply.
mm.
And yeah, I was hired in fact to do both acting and like kind of managing that actress for
Mm,
the
mm.
for
I see.
the shootings abroad. But
Mm, mm,
in
mm,
fact, I
mm.
didn't ever did that part.
Oh,
Like yeah, I was kind of hired for that, but I did only work as an actor once I was
wow. So you're
with
very
them.
lucky, I guess.
I don't know. It was like,
Right.
entering an agency is a step,
Mm,
but it's not the
mm, mm,
goal,
mm,
because
mm,
even if
mm,
it's a good
mm.
agency or a famous agency,
Right.
you still have
Mm.
to prove yourself. And you
Yeah.
still have,
Oh,
like, I did prove myself to the agency to that I wanted to work with them, but then I have to prove myself to the directors, to on the shootings, and
all right. All
to
right.
prove that I can understand
Mm,
everything, even if I'm not a native Japanese speaker, and like
mm, mm, mm,
that
mm,
I already
mm,
had
mm.
at that time, I think, my JLPT2. And then a
Oh,
few years later, like I think when I was 25 or something, 5 years after arriving in Japan, that I got my JLPT1. And yeah. And so, yeah, every time on each shooting, I had to, okay, I understand Japanese. There is no problem. I can act like in Japanese, and so you don't have to worry. And after many years, then like casting directors start to know that, oh, he speaks good Japanese and now he can act. And so it
ah,
gets easier if you take the time, but it takes a long time. Even if you own country, it's a work
mhm,
that
mhm,
like takes a
mhm,
lot of
mhm,
time, and
mhm,
that
mhm,
works
mhm.
only for a few people.
Right,
So
right,
it's even like it takes even more time in a foreign country. Of course, it's easier to get jobs in a foreign country because you're more rare,
ah, okay. All
but
right.
it takes more time to get trust.
Mm, mm,
So
mm, mm,
you can
mm,
have many
mm.
jobs, like, but like small jobs, you can have the quantity, but it
Right,
takes long time, and a lot of times you have the quality. And for that, you
right.
need people to trust you. So it's exactly the same thing as the language, as a culture, as like for
Mm,
work
mm,
also. You
mm,
have to really, you have
mm,
to
mm,
sometime put aside what you're used to and
mm.
try to understand the way it's working, and you have to really kind of do a lot of work on yourself to integrate it and like to observe it and stuff like
Very
that.
good point. Very good point. Eh? You need more time to gain their trust, as you say. Eh? Hi,
Yes,
great. Thank you very much. Now,
you're
my
welcome.
next question. My next question is
Yes,
that you are now based in Okinawa.
yes, I am,
Why Okinawa?
because I love Okinawa, and because
I
I
love
hate
it.
when it's cold.
Ah,
I hate when it's cold, and Okinawa is very warm. So
yeah. I,
no,
I
but
visited Okinawa in the 2000s and I like
yeah.
the island very much. Please tell me more
Yeah,
about your
also, of
life in
course,
Okinawa.
I prefer warm weather. So
Mm,
it's one thing, and I love the sea. I love to swim. I love the beach and stuffs. Also, Okinawa is a very wonderful, beautiful place that is like with wonderful sceneries. And
mm,
also, I think, um, people are way more relaxed than in Tokyo, for example, where it's very like it's a big city. It's the same in Paris, in New York, in Tokyo, and maybe more in Tokyo, because it's very like crazy,
mm,
speedy,
mm, 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 mm,
strict, and stuff like that.
mm.
So and myself, I am someone very, very, very like speedish, I would say. I'm like on the edge all the time, and like very
Mm,
nervous and stuff. So
mm.
on that point, Tokyo is matching me very well. But
Okay.
on the other hand, there is nothing to kind of like stop me in my nervousness.
Mm, mm,
And
mm,
it's
mm, mm, mm,
and because it's my nature, it's very difficult for me to contain it also.
mm, mm,
But Okinawa is like so much more relaxed.
mm,
People are so much more like let's say uh yeah, cool, not cool, but like yeah, they like the flow of life, let's say. So
mm,
it's really a good like intermediate, I think, because it still has a lot of parts of the Japanese culture
mm,
and a lot of great stuffs that I love in Japan.
mm.
But also it's a little bit more like Southern Asia, so a little bit Southern Asia,
Okay. All right. Mm,
so a
mm,
little bit more yeah, let the time flows and like take things how they come.
mm,
So I
mm,
think
mm.
it's like it's the Japanese culture, but in a milder way. And for
Ah,
me, that is so nervous. It's really a good like a good place to slow down a little bit.
mm,
Yeah, and so I loved already Okinawa for that, but
mm,
also I had the opportunity 6 years ago to start my TV show in Okinawa, a local show, my own show that I'm still doing nowadays
mm, mm,
with a wonderful partner from Okinawa, an Okinawan girl that is called Miyoka. So both
mm,
of us are going around Okinawa and like discovering stuff, introducing stuffs and activities, history and culture and great foods and stuff like that. And I started that show 6 years ago.
mm,
And at first, I was still based in Tokyo, and I was coming to Okinawa maybe 10 days a month
mm,
for the
mm, mm,
shootings.
mm.
And then 3 years ago, I decided like maybe to do the opposite because I was feeling more relaxed and less stressful in Okinawa. So I decided to settle in Okinawa and to go to Tokyo when I have to work there. So
Mm.
yeah, I just changed the place that the main settling. So
Ah,
I did settle in Okinawa and go back to Tokyo for work
mm,
until
mm,
that wonderful pandemic that we have now, that it's kind of more difficult to go around. So I'm kind of more based in Okinawa now. Thanks to the pandemic, because like it's not easy to travel
mm, mm, mm,
so
mm.
much. Though this summer I did work for the Olympics in Tokyo,
Right. Okay. Mm,
for the to do the announce for the medals in French,
mm,
because
mm,
French
mm.
is like the Olympic language.
Internet language. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so for the announce of medals, we I was there to say
Mm.
médaille d'or Japon, médaille d'argent Brésil. Et maintenant, veuillez accueillir les médaillés, or things like that. And that was like, I think 1 year and a half, I couldn't go to Tokyo because of the pandemic. So, so
Mm,
that
mm,
was nice, even if I was very worried about it.
mm, 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 mm,
But
mm,
that
mm,
was nice.
mm.
So Okinawa, yeah. And now my show is still going on. And you know, as I said a few minutes ago, it's more rare to be a foreigner in the media in Japan, so you have a lot more opportunities. And in Okinawa, it was even more rare to be a foreigner working for TV, and so thanks to the show and thanks like many people are watching it and still watching it after 6 years, I did have the opportunity to do some commercials in Okinawa also and some other TV shows and stuff like that, because I was kind of the only foreigner on the Okinawan local TV. So
Oh.
it was kind of fast, you know, to for people to remind me, because there is a lot of half people
Mm,
with
mm,
double
mm, mm, mm.
nationality
Yes. Yes.
and half Okinawan, half Americans and stuff like that. But it was kind of rare to be like the white guy on TV. So it was kind of like easy, I guess, for Okinawan people to remember me quickly and like to have
Ah,
other jobs here.
okay.
So yeah, so I decided to settle in Okinawa and go back to Tokyo when there is work there. Also because like it kind of go well and the timing was nice here. So,
Mm, mm,
but
mm,
yeah,
mm,
I'm it's very it's very strange. I would say it's a bit difficult for me to talk about all that because it's a so
mm. Okay.
specific work. So I
Right.
think like it may be difficult for people to relate to
Mm,
it.
mm,
But
mm,
even though it's kind of the same thing in whatever
mm, 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 mm,
whatever field
mm,
that
mm,
you have to make your place
mm,
and for
mm,
that you have to understand people, understand the
mm,
culture.
mm,
You have to
mm,
work
mm,
hard
mm.
to
Yeah. All right.
for the language and stuff like that.
Mm,
So
yeah.
my case in my work is a little bit too specific and maybe difficult to relate, but
Mm,
also it's kind of an example within
mm,
like
mm,
many
mm,
others.
Okay. All right. Okay. Because I think especially with people from my country, because we are from a hot country, most likely Okinawa will not be the choice of visit. Yeah, mostly most of Malaysian would like to go to Hokkaido or to the more traditional Kyoto and things like that. Yeah, but I personally visited to Okinawa and I like the place very very much. But I
Yeah,
hope that.
also I think yeah, but as I said, it's really a good mix Okinawa because you have the Japanese culture, but you
Mm,
also have a specific culture, so you can
mm,
discover
mm,
two
mm,
cultures in
mm,
one place, and I think
mm,
that's
mm,
wonderful
mm,
and that's a
mm,
good
I
place. That's a
yes,
good
I
point
true. I personally
for
feel that.
Okinawa too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like
Mm,
that's not also. Yeah, I'm not. I love Okinawa, and I think I will spend many years and probably
Ah,
all my
mm,
life in Okinawa. But I'm not settled in
I got
Okinawa. I
right.
can go out also to other places to work and discovers, and I can visit like many places that I love,
Mm, mm,
like
mm,
Hakone
mm, mm, mm,
or
mm, mm,
Kamakura or places that I
mm.
loved when I was living in Tokyo.
I see. Great. Okay. Now let's move. We have a few questions from the viewers. Let's look at one of these the questions. Let's say let's talk about. Okay. All right. It's from Fatin. She
Yes.
asked, "What is the best part of Japanese working environment?"
Oh, again, my field of work is very, very specific, so it's kind of difficult to for me to talk general about how it is to work in a Japanese company when you're a salaryman or when you are like an employee for, let's say, a regular company.
Mm,
So it is. I think the good thing, it's kind of clear. I would say in France, for example, we are a little bit more messy
messy.
when
Oh.
messy in France. Yeah, for
Ah.
example,
Okay.
when
Right.
it turns to deciding, like everyone is deciding at the same time and everyone is talking at the same time. In Japan, it's kind of more like everyone has its job,
Mm,
and
mm, mm.
it's not good to interfere in someone else like job, let's say in a company,
Okay.
even if you can help them. If they
Mm.
don't ask or if your boss don't ask, you you
You
don't
cannot
like
interfere. Okay.
you
Mm,
don't
mm,
interfere
mm,
everyone has its own
mm,
responsibilities,
mm, mm, mm,
and
mm,
maybe in companies Japanese people don't like to not know anymore whose responsibility it is.
mm,
So in a way, I think it's kind of a good aspect because you stick to what you have to do, and then you know what you have to do, and then it's not messy, it's very clear about that.
mm.
Sometimes it can be also considered and felt as a little bit stubborn
Oh, okay.
because when you can help others for their task or so, sometimes it's a way smoother and it goes way faster, but it's not in the way of Japanese working really, so you also have to deal with it and like understand that it's not how it works in Japan. There is
Uh,
good aspects and bad aspects and everything, but I think it's
right.
also like it's kind of clear and easy to understand what you have to do, and you stick to that, and then
Okay.
everything will go okay, and that's fine.
We are running out of time, but let's take one more question. I like this
Yes.
question. Is that uh, how do you balance so many languages that you know? I think we Malaysians also have this issue too.
Okay, so to be honest, for the three languages that I speak, like let's say that I still speak nowadays, because I can't really speak Chinese anymore, even if I learned it for 4 years when I was young, and I did learn German, but I was never really good at it. So for within the three languages I can speak nowadays, that are French, Japanese, and English, English is the worst, like, of the three. I'm really not confident with my English, and like Edwardson, I told you when we were talking by mail before that interview that I'm not confident. I don't know if I can speak like English for a full interview, because like I
You
don't really
speak
use
very, very
English.
good. Yeah.
I
You
don't
speak
really
very
use English
good.
that much nowadays, and because I basically speak Japanese all the time.
Okay.
So balance was kind of difficult at first. Um, the first years I came to Japan, I didn't really speak English.
Mm.
I was basically trying to speak only Japanese, and speaking French to my mom on the phone or stuff like
Mm.
that. But
Mm. Mm.
once you get used to switch between two
Mm.
languages that were
Mm.
French and Japanese for me
Mm.
after a few years, then it's kind of obvious. Like there is a switch. Like, uh,
Automatically.
yeah, after you learn how to switch between two languages, it's
Mm.
kind of like natural to switch between any language.
You don't
So
get mixed up with it?
not that much. No,
Mm.
not
Mm.
no
Mm.
no. I wouldn't say mixed. No, no, no. Yeah, even for English, it's kind of natural to switch to it. The only point with English is that I'm not practicing that much, so I have sometimes of like some problems with grammar and like vocabulary. But yeah, yeah.
But we Malaysian like to mix all the languages together. Sometimes in one sentence we have so
Oh,
many languages, and we love it because it gives us special taste, special, that we feel very familiar with each other
yeah, that
when we
happens
use all.
sometimes when I speak with some foreign friends living in
Mm,
Japan and who are also fluent in Japanese.
mm,
So
mm,
I have a very good friend in
mm.
Tokyo called Mia. She's French, but she has a really, really good level in Japanese. We kind of have a similar level, I would say. But when we talk together, we kind of mix French and Japanese. So, oh là là, aujourd'hui 疲れたね. Like, yeah. So meaning, yeah, mix to say, oh yeah, well today we're kind of tired or something.
We are overrunning time, but there's two questions. So let's pick it up. From one of these questions is that from Miss Ang. She asked you whether you have any cultural shock when you first visit Japan and when you return home after so
Did you
many years in
experience any
Japan.
cultural shocks when you first visited Japan, and vice versa when you returned home after a few years in Japan?
After
Um,
marriage, I think.
yeah, as I said, like to get inserted in Japanese culture, you have to kind of like understand it, and unconsciously you adapt to it. So I think after a few years, I became way more mild than I was before coming to Japan. Because, as I said earlier, French people try to give like their thought about anything in the world. So after a few years in Japan, after I came back to France, I
Mm.
was kind of like shocked and tired like easily that everyone was arguing about anything, and like some things that are so not important,
Mm,
like
mm, mm,
yeah,
mm, mm,
sometimes French people like to argue about very small details, and I
mm,
think I was like that also before coming to Japan. But Japan um had me to be way more mild than I was at first. And on the other hand, a culture shock, like I'm asked this question a lot, but I barely can think of something because I studied a lot of Japanese culture and so at university before coming. So I was
Mm,
kind of
mm,
aware
mm,
of
mm, mm,
what was
mm,
like waiting for me. The only thing I think that is a shock even nowadays for me is that like ATM,
ah, right,
to
definitely.
get money,
Mm.
have running hours
Ah,
in Japan. So they are machines. They should be like 24 hours a day. But there is a time sometimes when you can't get money for ATMs because I don't know if they are on strike or something. But yeah, what is the thing with ATM that have working hours? So it's getting better. To be completely honest, it's getting better
mm,
nowadays.
mm,
And usually you
all
can
right.
go to the convenience store and like kind of like take money almost all the
Mm,
time.
mm,
But
mm,
like it
mm,
was a culture shock, like
mm,
some it's the point of automatic stuffs to be available all the time. So
mm.
why? Why? So that's not
Okay,
really a culture shock, but that's really something that I feel funny.
great, great.
Just
Okay.
no time for the questions, but thank you. Yeah, I remember for the Shirayuki concert, I'm reading the comments also. And
はい。
ゆきさん、ありがとうございます。いつも本当に今度ワインお礼お渡ししますので、ありがとうございます。もちろん沖縄に残ります。
Hi, we apologize to all the viewers that we were not able to take any more questions, but thank you very much for participating in. Mike, now let's move on to the final part of the interview. Is that I
Yes,
want to ask you, do you have any regrets in choosing Japanese or
regrets.
doing what you're doing now?
Not at all.
Oh, okay.
Not at all.
Seems enjoying it.
I was very, very studious at university, at school. Sorry, I was working hard and I was a good student and so on. So I kind of spent all my youth studying,
Mm.
and then when I was 18 or something, I did go to a very, very prestigious, famous, like difficult to enter business school.
Mm.
So everyone was, oh, that's great, that's cool, and in that school and stuff like that. And you will have a good work with good money and so on. And like, it was really, really not for me. I hated it. I wasn't like feeling at my place there. And
Mm.
it was too much about money, how to make a lot of money, how to use people to make money and stuff like that. And yeah, I kind of there were of course good aspects of it too, but it was really not for me. And I always had this like love for artistic, like
Ah.
activities. And
Mm.
also there was also that thing that unconsciously, I think, until that point I spent all my life and my
Mm.
youth to study. And
Mm.
I needed something that was not, in the books, but that was more about expression and that was more a challenge.
Mm.
So I
Mm.
stopped that school after a year. Everyone told me,
Oh.
you're crazy. Why? Like, it's so difficult to get there and so on. But I stopped it because I didn't like it. And I went to Japan and I started to work as an actor. That is not at all like how to say fixed,
Mm. Not stable life, I
not
would say.
stable. Yeah, thank you.
Mm.
That is
Mm.
not stable. So yeah, everyone told me you're crazy. My parents were kind of sad of it, I think,
Mm.
but I don't regret it. I don't regret
Mm.
to have listened to my heart,
Mm.
because even if I had a great job after that
Mm.
school, I wouldn't have been happy, I guess, because
Ah,
it's
all right.
not what I like and it's not what I wanted to do.
Mm.
Also, like, for the last 20, 25 years, like
Mm.
the economy hasn't been so well in the
Mm.
world at
Mm.
sometimes. So some of my friends that were in that school with me had some difficulties to find work, whatever it
Oh,
was a good school. So
okay.
uh, I told everyone after that, you see, not any work is stable anymore.
Mm.
So at
Mm. Mm.
least
Mm.
I'm
Mm.
happy
Mm.
to
Mm.
do something I love.
Right, right.
And I did work a lot to how to say, to be able to make a living from it, because it's not an
Mm,
easy work. Of
I
course,
see.
it's not stable at all,
Yeah,
so it's a
right.
lot of work also. But I love it, so I don't care working a lot for it because it's very important. And for me, it's two dreams within one,
Two
doing
days.
that, because I was really hoping to do this kind of job since I was a child, but I couldn't tell anyone, even my
Ah,
parents, because they had other expectations for me.
mm, 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 mm.
So that's one dream for that job, and my other dream was to live in Japan. And I have those two dreams together,
Ah,
doing the job I
great.
love in Japan.
You're very lucky. You are very lucky to have two
I'm
dreams.
lucky, and that's also a lot of works and
Oh,
efforts,
yeah. Of course. You have
But
to work
luck
for it. You have to work.
But luck is really an important factor too.
Great,
I'm
great.
sure.
So
Yeah,
I assume that your future plans will always involve Japan.
yeah, of course, of course. I want to stay in Japan. I want to stay in Okinawa, of course. I want to stay based in Okinawa, but
Okay.
like yet working in other places in Japan. Also,
Mm,
I
mm.
have like only one regret. You asked me
Oh,
about my regrets about my
oh,
job,
what
and
is
in
it?
Japan, I don't have.
Ah,
But the
okay.
only regret that I have is when I was like 27.
Mm.
I had an opportunity, an offer to go to try to
Mm.
work in Hollywood.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
okay. It was just an offer. Like I
Mm,
didn't have any job like already fixed or something, but
mm,
it was to go there with an
mm.
agent and to try to get work there
Ah, all
from
right.
an
Okay.
agent over there. But at the time, I refused for
Why?
two reasons. The first one is that like I wasn't confident enough, and
Mm.
I'm not someone that confident, so that stopped me many times in my life and in my work. But at that time, it's one factor. But the most important factor was like I was hoping to
Mm.
apply for like the permanent resident like status in Japan.
Ah,
And
okay. All right.
to be able to apply to that, you
Mm,
need at least 10 years, 10 continuous years
mm,
working in Japan
mm, mm,
without
mm, mm,
leaving for a long period of time.
mm.
So that would have meant like going to the States
Ah,
um,
all
would
right.
be to like to stop that. I already had
Mm,
like
mm,
7, 8 years, six or
mm,
7 years at that time. And if I
mm.
went to the States and if it didn't work and if I came back to Japan, I would have had to start everything from the
Right.
beginning.
I see.
And
Okay. Mm, mm,
even if it worked, I love Japan too much, so
mm.
I couldn't think of myself like throwing, putting aside Japan and all the efforts I had to that point, I made to that point to work there. So now that I have my permanent resident visa and that I
Oh, maybe
don't
go.
need to take care of if I leave Japan for a year or two, if I apply for my re-entry, that's
Ah,
fine.
okay.
Now that would be great if I could have the same offer for the future, but maybe
Oh,
but
maybe.
maybe I'm not young enough anymore. So well,
No, no, no.
but
Don't worry.
anyway,
You're always
I,
young.
I I don't really regret it. That's
Mm,
the only thing that was really, let's say, a bad timing. Oh, my
mm.
cat is starting to be talkative. I think he misses me now.
Yes, we're also running out of time. Sorry, very
Yeah,
sorry.
I
Now,
talk a lot. I know, I know.
no, not at all. We love to hear it from you. Now, lastly, just before we let you off, okay, could you share with us your favorite Japanese word or phrase and tell us why?
Yeah, I thought a lot about it, and it's a question that often asked in Japan also. What's your favorite word? Oh, I don't know. I love all the Japanese language and so. But there is a word that I love in Okinawan. That
Oh,
is
okay.
also Japanese.
Ah,
That is also
ah,
Japanese. That is
okay.
also Japanese. And I think that word is really reflecting the beauty of Okinawa and the good aspects of Okinawa and why I love it.
Mm.
It's nuchigusui. Nuchigusui. Yes, nuchigusui. That means the medicine of life, as I taught you. In the way that it's not really a medicine, it's an image.
Oh,
When
okay.
you do something that is really, really uh, where you feel like happy, when when you are in a situation that you feel like great, that you feel relaxed, that you feel fulfilled, I will
Uh,
say.
uh.
When you're in a situation that it make you feel this kind of stuffs, it's called in Okinawa like the medicine of life. Oh, I'm feeling so good. Nuchigusui ne.
Nujikusui. And you can use in
Nu-
any situation.
Nuchigusui? I would say like people tend to use it like for like really fulfilled like situation, like being happy with your family. Also very punctual stuffs like you're outside, there great weather and you feel the wind on your skin and it's feeling so nice and nuchigusui, or when you eat something that is so good and like, yeah, I think when you're feeling alive basically.
So it's something like the Japanese say psycho.
Oh no, it's way
Oh,
more
not that
poetic
so.
than psycho.
Oh, oh,
It's
okay.
way more poetic and way more like deep than psycho. Psycho
Oh,
is just wow, great. Like Nutsugusu is more I feel alive. I feel alive. I feel
I
alive thanks
see.
to that situation.
I
So
see.
it's like a medicine of life for me.
Very interesting.
Nutsugusui.
Hey, I learned a lot from you, especially
沖
on
縄
the.
の方もいるからね、今。合ってるのかな、僕の
そうですか、
説明で。
ダメでしょう
で
か。
Yeah. There is someone from Okinawa watching and who
あ、そうです
who
か。
made a comment earlier. So I'm wondering now if my explanation is correct, but I think it is.
Great, great, great. Okay, Vincent, we are coming and thank you very, very much for being with us on this show.
Thank you so
And
much, and thank you for everyone who was watching.
and I wish you all the best in your career and your life in Japan.
Thank
And
you to all of
please,
you, and all my prayers for this pandemic to end as soon as possible.
yes, yes, we are.
Oh,
And
okay. 合ってます。Nuchigusi. My explanation was great. We got the comment now. Thank you.
thank you. All right. And
Feeling alive.
please do visit Malaysia if you have a chance because you
Yeah,
will be
I
amazed
love
by
traveling and I made a lot of travels in Asia, Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, Bali, and my next destination that I really dream to go is Malaysia and to
you
visit
should be
all.
because the whole of Asia is in Malaysia. We have a tagline say
Yeah,
Malaysia
I,
truly Asia.
I love really old cultures, old temples and like
Yes.
places like that. So I really want to go visit someday. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vincent, for your time.
Thanks to
Thank you.
you, Edward, and thanks to all of you for watching, sorry, and for your questions and for bearing my bad English. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Bye-bye.
And to all our audience, thank you very much for being with us for all the 8 episodes. And this is the end of the Thursday Talk Show series. I hope that you have learned as much as we did from all our wonderful guests. And I would also like to thank my co-hosts, Hasparina Sensei, Kumaro Guru Sensei, Yozi, Izu, and Ayoni. And also not forgetting my two crew members behind the scene, Mizi and Teo. Tahen otsukare-sama deshita. And we meet again, hopefully next year. Keep safe. Bye-bye.